Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind. Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, Maverick family. I'm Rick Walker. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. A little bit of a rough start there to the show. Sorry about that. But we're here, and we're ready to bring you today's top stories. We're going to have a special guest join us tonight, Michael Bator. He's from Ontario, but he was out in British Columbia in the Kelowna area, and he escaped the wildfires there. He's a member of the People's Party of Canada, and he sent out a message today saying that he escaped basically just in time, got out just in time. He's going to join us and talk about his experience, tell us exactly what he saw on the ground out there, and we'll talk about the wildfires in general and the politics behind it, I guess, and also the response that we've seen from government and emergency services personnel. So looking forward to that conversation. I think he has a lot of constructive things to bring to the table and the conversation on that front tonight. Also, General Motors kind of dialing back sort of a pilot program for autonomous driving, autonomous vehicles in the aftermath of some crashes involving, two crashes, in fact, involving a couple of autonomous vehicles in their fleet out there that are being used as taxi cabs. So we'll clue you in on what's going on with that as well. And then in Lahaina, Hawaii, still the search continues for victims following the wildfires there. And a lot of controversy, a lot of speculation, a lot of social media posting continuing as people wonder what it was that actually caused the fires, and people scrutinize and criticize the Biden administration for the response, the inadequate response so far, by the estimation of many, from the government. So all that and more coming up right here on the Maverick News Channel. Don't go away. I shall return right after this.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
So the wildfire situation still critical. Out in British Columbia, the government is using extraordinary powers tonight. They have declared a state of emergency province-wide to implement a restriction on tourism-related travel to the province in areas affected by the wildfires out there. So Premier David Eby announced the order at a news conference just a short time ago. He says the order is intended to make sure that there is sufficient temporary accommodation available for people who are evacuating or are involved in fighting the wildfires out in BC. He says the current situation is, in his view, grim. Says there are about 35,000 people on evacuation order across the province, and another 30,000 are on evacuation alert. And they might need to leave at a moment's notice. He says they have urgent need for more accommodation. And what the premier is saying is that he wants people to stay off the roads for tourist-related, non-essential travel, to stay in temporary accommodation. Why does the phrase essential, non-essential travel, why does that bother me? So the order really applies to the Okanagan region, and that focus is coming from the Minister of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, Bao and Ma, who says people, families, firefighters, and other frontline responders need a safe place to stay during their time in British Columbia fighting the fires. Ma says under the order, they are restricting travel to several communities for anyone planning on staying in temporary accommodation. So, travel restrictions. If you're out there as a tourist, I don't know what you're going to do if they catch you at a hotel. I don't think it's a law. Says, let me be clear, temporary accommodation in the areas I have listed are no longer available for non-essential visits. If you do not need to travel to these areas for essential reasons, we need you to change your plans. She says that those who are currently vacationing in the area need to consider cutting their visits short in order to free up more space. And I'm turning my phone off. I shouldn't even keep it with me when I'm when I'm doing this. So there you go. They've declared this state of emergency. We have comments now from Mr. Eby, the Premier of British Columbia. Here we go. David Eby.
Know that right now we are facing the worst wildfire season in our province's history. This unprecedented situation has come to a head this evening. In just the last 24 hours, the situation has evolved and deteriorated quite rapidly. In just the last hour, we've gone from about 4,500 homes under evacuation to about 15,000 homes, families being evacuated from their homes across the province. We have tens of thousands more across the province on evacuation alert. Tonight, as a result of this rapid deterioration, we are declaring a provincial state of emergency to ensure that we have rapid access to any tools that we may need to respond to this situation. And these tools are necessary to support communities, to support families, and support those brave frontline workers who are battling the fires in our forests and in our communities. There are some steps that British Columbians can take to assist our brave firefighters and our brave first responders. We need British Columbians to stay alert, to be prepared for evacuation warnings and evacuation alerts. If you get an evacuation order, please leave. Spent the day speaking with community leaders, First Nations leadership across the province in affected areas. And one of their core messages is, please don't put firefighters at risk by staying in your home if you're under evacuation order. Please don't travel to affected areas. Only essential travel. We need roads clear for first responders, for emergency crews, for evacuees, and we need accommodation available as well. The situation is unpredictable right now, and there are certainly difficult days ahead. If there's a silver lining here, it's that we know that under stressful times, under difficult circumstances, British Columbians rise to the occasion. British Columbians are generous, compassionate, and resourceful, and we support each other. And we're going to keep doing that work. As a government, we're going to be here to support affected communities and families across the province. Those parents who are comforting stressed out kids, those firefighters who are on the front lines, saving homes, saving communities, battling forest fires, those people wondering about what the future is going to look like in the next few days. The government will be there, and British Columbians across the province will be there for you. We can and we will get through this together. Thank you very much. I'd like to turn over to the Minister responsible, Bowen Ma.
Thank you so much, Premier, and good evening, everyone. I'm Bowen Ma, Minister of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, joining you today from the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. Before I begin, I'd like to echo Premier Eby and say that our hearts are with all of the people affected by wildfires across BC. And I want to offer my condolences to people who have lost their homes due to the McDougall Creek wildfire near West Kelowna. I'd also like to offer my condolences to people across the province that are facing similar situation. The last 24 hours have been tremendously difficult for many people across British Columbia. And over the last 24 hours, and since I last spoke to you this afternoon, the wildfire situation in BC has rapidly evolved. Approximately 15,000 people are under evacuation order across the province. Approximately 20,000 additional people are under an evacuation alert. The cold front we are experiencing throughout the province has resulted in a rapidly deteriorating situation. There are numerous fires across the province threatening communities. People have been mostly following our call not to travel to certain areas and to stay out of the way of emergency crews so that they can do their jobs. However, we are also seeing more and more people being evacuated, and access to accommodation is increasingly challenging in the interior. We need accommodations available to keep people safe and to house critical response personnel like firefighters and healthcare staff. At this time, we are strongly recommending that people with plans to travel to fire-affected areas throughout the central interior and southeast in the coming days to cancel those plans. We need tourists and travelers to take this situation as seriously as the residents of these areas do. We ask that you please leave accommodation space available to evacuees, emergency personnel, and healthcare workers working across the province. I repeat, do not travel to wildfire-affected areas for non-essential reasons. By limiting our travel in affected areas, we can make room for those who need it and also ensure that our roads are clear for those who need to evacuate quickly. As Premier Eby mentioned, the first priority of our government is to ensure public safety. We will continue to do everything that we need to safeguard people and protect properties and communities from the threat of wildfire. By declaring a state of provincial emergency, we are able to enact extraordinary powers that, among other tools, could include legally enforceable orders that restrict travel to specific areas if people do not adhere to our calls to avoid non-essential travel to the central interior and southeast. We all have a part to play to protect ourselves, our families, our neighbors, and our communities. This decision to declare a provincial state of Provincial state of emergency was not done lightly. It was made on the advice of emergency management officials and BC Wildfire Service experts. And I am continuing to encourage everyone to please follow the advice of your local government and First Nation. If you are put under an evacuation order, you must leave the area immediately. Evacuation alerts and orders are published on the Emergency Info BC website at emergencyinfobc.gov.bc.ca. Please stay calm, be alert, and be prepared. Thank you. I believe we have some time for a few questions.
Thank you for joining us. For the reporters online, please press star one to queue. Ask a question. We're going to start with Richard Sisman from Global News. You'll be able to take one question and one follow-up. Go ahead, Richard.
Why not use those powers of the state of emergency now and ban people from coming here to Kelowna in order to ensure that you have those rooms? And how worried should people in this community be, but also in other communities in British Columbia as we see these conditions deteriorate?
The situation has deteriorated quite rapidly, and we're relying on the advice of the frontline officials that are on the ground right now in terms of the tools they need to get the job done. If they advise us that they need an order for essential transportation only in these regions, then Mr. Ma and her team and our government will not hesitate to issue those necessary orders. Right now, they want us to be prepared. They want us to have those tools ready for if we need them, because this is a rapidly changing situation. And Richard, I know you asked just one question, but I forgot the second half of your first question.
How worried should people be right now, not just here in Kelowna, but in other parts of British Columbia? And that can be my follow-up.
Well, I think what we're asking all British Columbians to do is to stay calm, to stay alert, to check in with media, to check in online about evacuation orders that may affect their area, to be fire smart, as we've been asking people to do all summer. This is an historic wildfire season for British Columbia, and we need people to do their part to make sure that our province comes through this as best as possible. If you have the ability to support somebody with storing an RV, with storing livestock in agricultural communities, if you're able to take in a friend or a neighbor that's under evacuation order to ease pressure on accommodation, please reach out and provide those offers to neighbors. This is the resourcefulness, the resilience, and the compassion of British Columbians that's going to get us through this. And I'll turn it maybe over to Minister Ma for anything she might add to request British Columbians.
Thank you so much, Premier. I think you covered it very well, though. We need people to stay calm. We need people to be alert and to be prepared. Those living in wildfire-affected areas or in areas at risk of wildfire need to have their emergency plans in place. They need to reach out to friends and family in other areas of the province to start discussing those potential billeting options. They need to have their grab-and-go kit ready to go, and they need to pay attention to the alerts and orders that are being issued by their local government, their regional district, or their First Nation. Pay attention to those alerts. It will save lives, and by following them, you are also helping out our first responders on the ground.
Our next question will come from Yasmin Ganea from CC News.
What else will the state of emergency allow the government to do?
From a high level, the state of emergency declaration does a couple things. First of all, obviously, it communicates to people across the province the seriousness of the deteriorating situation that we're facing. When we ask people to restrict their travel, when we ask them to change and cancel their travel plans to fire-affected areas, it really underlines that there's a state of emergency. It enables a number of legal tools for us to issue specific orders and to ensure that resources are available. It might be accommodation, It might be fire services. We had to reach out to Lower Mainland Fire Services to ask them to contribute additional resources to Kelowna to be able to respond. It could be heavy equipment, and it could be other resources that are required for the front lines. Minister Ma, I don't know if you have anything else you would add in terms of what this would enable.
Thank you so much. Let me be clear. We've been clear from the beginning that the ability to provide resources to fight fires on the front lines is enabled already through the Wildfire Act. We do have those tools available. However, a provincial state of emergency allows us to compel resources from unwilling partners or uncooperative partners. I will say right now, we are having enormous levels of cooperation across the board from all corners of the province, which is largely why we haven't required a provincial state of emergency before. But given the rapidly evolving situation that we now find ourselves in, we can foresee some of those extraordinary orders that may be helpful to us in our response, and we want to be ready to be able to use them at a moment's notice.
Follow-up question.
Yeah, obviously this is a very unpredictable situation, but what concerns do you have going into the weekend?
Here, I think what we're concerned about is that what we're seeing so far is rapidly escalating, very unpredictable. And we know that from the forecast, the cold front will continue to cause unpredictable weather patterns that will make fighting fires very, very challenging. We have seen in the last 24 hours, evacuation alerts quickly fall to become evacuation orders, falling like dominoes in some areas. And that speed at which we are going from a threat to a potential threat to an imminent threat is incredibly concerning. We do need also the tools available to us to secure accommodations if required. We are seeing that there are wildland firefighting camps actually. So I'll say again, we're in a situation where we have wildland firefighter camps being evacuated. So our wildfire fighters are actually being evacuated from their accommodations as well as they are actively fighting wildfires. This is part of the reason why we're experiencing the acute need for accommodations in these areas. And perhaps I'll check in with Cliff Chapman to see if he has anything to add.
Minister, as stated, my name is Cliff Chapman. I'm the Director of Provincial Operations for BC Wildfire Service. Let's just touch on a couple pieces here that have gone over in the last few minutes. The first one is around the worry around fire behavior in the coming days. I think Minister Ma covered it perfectly. It isn't about worrying, it's about being prepared. Have your family ready. Know that in the southern half of the province right now, but also as we start to see some of the fires in the north still not have any rain, we do need people to be ready. We need people to be calm. And so if you're ready and you're prepared, you will be calm. And that should allow us the access we need on the roadways and not have to enact some of the measures that this announcement gives us, but we are willing to if we need to. As Minister Ma stated, it has been excellent cooperation up until this point from the majority of the province as we've experienced fires over the last number of months, and in particular in the last 24 hours as we saw the uptick in evacuation orders and alerts in very high pressure situations. People are listening and they are following the instructions of their local governments, and we appreciate that greatly.
Our next question, we're going to go back to the phone lines for Brianna Charlebois from Canadian Press. Brianna, please unmute and go ahead.
Hi there, thanks so much. I'm just trying to get a little bit of clarity on the numbers. Was it 15,000 homes, families, or people who were under evacuation order at this point?
Brendan, I'm going to go over to you just so that you can make sure that we have that exactly right.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Brendan Rouse. I'm the Director of Provincial Response Operations for the Ministry of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, or EMCR. And so the numbers as presented are, I just want to remind everybody that it's an extremely dynamic situation that we're facing. Oftentimes having exact information from the field can be difficult and take time to build. The latest numbers that we had was that we have approximately 15,000 people on evacuation order and 20,000 people on evacuation alert across the entire province.
Brianna, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, I guess what is in the immediate aftermath? Like, what are you hoping to get? Would that be help from other provinces and more international help? What is sort of the hope in the immediate future? Thanks.
So we have been extremely grateful for the out-of-province support that we've already received and continue to receive, not only from the federal government and other provinces in the country, but international wildland firefighting resources that have joined us here in this province against our fight against a very challenging wildfire season. We continue to assess our resource needs from that place, and I'll make sure that Mr. Ralston has a chance to speak to some of those assessments if you have anything to add there. But in the immediate future, what we want from this particular announcement today is first to communicate that we are at a high state level of readiness with the provincial state of emergency, that it is possible that additional legally enforceable orders that are related to travel restrictions may come into place, and we need people to make the choice now to stay at home and avoid those areas in the central interior and the southeast. Did you have anything to add?
Thank you very much. The BC Wildfire Service, the CEO, Ian Meyer, has told me that the ongoing assessment is continuous, and there are an effort right now to gather the resources that will be necessary to fight the fires throughout the province, but particularly in the central Okanagan. That assessment process is a very dynamic one, and will be updated very quickly. If additional resources are needed, then they will be asked for, requisitioned, and deployed. I don't know, Cliff Chapman may have further details on where the status of those requests is at the present time.
Ralston. And so what I can confirm is that we have a request in through the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Center. We have had one of those requests answered, so we are looking to secure 16 highly trained, highly certified individual resources. So 16 coming from Australia, likely to show up next week. We're also have a request in for an additional 200 firefighting resources. Couple points of clarity. We did not need this declaration to have full access to international and national resources. As we've seen for the last 3 months during this very challenging fire season, we have had the ability to request these resources, and we have been requesting these resources day over day and week over week. And obviously at this point in time, and I mentioned on the briefing yesterday, between BC and Northwest Territories, we are the two agencies in Canada that are at the highest preparedness level given our response needs. And so really the resources are generally being divided between Northwest Territories and BC to support both of our fire efforts over the coming weeks.
So that will bring to the end this press conference. I just wanted to wrap up by saying thank you so much to the firefighters who have left their families behind, who are on the front lines in communities right now, protecting British Columbians. We know you're tired. We know you've been working incredibly hard. We know you're putting yourself at risk to do this critically important work for British Columbians. We are so grateful for all that you do for us and all that we're going to ask you to do over the next few days. On behalf of all British Columbians, I want to say how much it means to us that you're out there and you have our full support. Thank you very much, everybody.
I got to tell you, Minister Ma doesn't seem calm. There she is telling everyone to remain calm, but she seemed like totally stressed. Maybe she was making me feel jittery and nervous just watching her. She's under heavy duty pressure, you can tell. And it doesn't look to me like she got through it and didn't stumble or anything, but you could just sense the tension in her voice. And it is a very serious situation. I can certainly understand why she's like that, but it didn't instill a high level of confidence in me when I see a public official standing up there really rigid and just super intense, um, and trying to remain calm, but obviously she's not. And I get it, man. It's a really serious situation, and that's because people are being well, homes are being destroyed, people are being evacuated, lives are in danger, and I know that in some places firefighters have been placed, in the path of danger because they have actually ended up kind of behind lines again, trying to get people to leave long after they were asked to leave, and they didn't do it. So there's some of that going on too. You would think that people would leave when they're warned, especially after what we've seen happen in Hawaii with all those people who have died. That's honestly, folks, why at the beginning of this wildfire season, I took exception to a lot of posts that I saw on social media from honestly, some people within the freedom movement who, because of their love of freedom, were inclined to simply not trust the government, not trust emergency services personnel, not trust the firefighters, don't trust the cops, don't trust the government. And they were encouraging people to do, an end run around roadblocks and go in behind the uh, the cops, get around them, and just go in and fight the fires on their own. And I said, no, 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 not smart. Don't go in there. And we've seen some incidents in Canada where people have been. Well, there was an incident out in, I think it was Alberta, where the guy got stuck in the mud, got caught behind, got trapped in an area where he got encircled by fire. They had to airlift him out. There have been some people who are stubborn and wouldn't leave their homes west. And then tonight, what's the situation in the Northwest Territories? Well, I'll get you the latest here in my notes. So we know that the travel restrictions are now in place in British Columbia. And that's BC. Where are my notes on the Northwest Territories? Well, we know that some 20,000 people were evacuated from Yellowknife. So officials in the Northwest Territories are saying tonight that they do not expect that fire near Yellowknife to reach the city's boundaries by the end of this weekend. They're saying that is due in part because of due to cooler weather conditions, but they say that the threat to the area is still real. So the most recent update from the territorial government there is that while the fires near Yellowknife do remain out of control tonight, they have had a few millimeters of rain in some areas, and that has helped the situation. And so it's now unlikely that the fire will reach the outskirts of Yellowknife by the end of this weekend. So that's very good news. There was some concern that the town might be in jeopardy. And I think those concerns certainly elevated after seeing what happened in Lahaina. Totally different country, different place, different situation. But obviously, we've seen wildfires in other countries as well over the summer, not just Canada and the US, but other countries. And it's raising a lot of questions. Part of it is these days, the reason people are so acutely aware is because of television. It's also because of social media. Today, you see the news as it unfolds. You see it almost live. Sometimes in many cases, you actually see it live. So no matter what happens anywhere in the world, you have access. You're being bombarded with news and information, current affairs all the time. So you become more aware, more acutely aware of these kinds of emergencies. And so we're consuming the information in a different way, in a more, I would say, not only do you get the information, but you get it from a wider variety of sources. Where you used to have, say, 13 television channels back when I was a kid, today you have 500 television channels and thousands of choices online as well. So whatever it is you're looking at, it's amplified, right? So it becomes something that's very much top of mind for people. That is absolutely one of the factors here in the way people respond to these things, because you get focused on a particular story. Not to diminish the seriousness of any of these things, but you really do get focused on it. I think sometimes, though, and when I was younger, when you watched television, news coverage of disasters like hurricanes or floods, even wildfires, and these things have happened in the past. Sometimes the news media would focus on a particular thing, one thing, and everyone, even though you weren't seeing all of that information, you are like flooded with information about it constantly. That's what the media was focused on. So it became singular in focus, and people would become very, very worried about a particular thing. So I think in some ways it was easier in some ways for the media to manipulate public opinion too back then. What's going on now is far more sophisticated, but it's an interesting phenomenon to see the way that media plays a role in people's perceptions, how much the context of things, the scale of things in people's minds. That's what I said the other night. It was difficult for me to kind of get a handle on how broad the devastation is in Hawaii from these wildfires, because when you're looking at the images, they're focused only on the destruction. You're not seeing other parts of the island where there isn't damage. So you see maps, and that gives you a bit of a scale as well. But knowing what I know about the way media works, it's sometimes misleading. Sometimes you mislead yourself when you're watching content and you're only seeing a certain perspective on things. That's why when I would always shoot a news story, I would make an effort to shoot wide shots of things, medium shots, and then close-ups to give people a full perspective, because you can make things look different just from how much you zoom in on subject matter. So it's important to give people that accurate, the variety of perspectives, so they get the broader picture. More information equals better information, and I think that's very important. That's why tonight, too, people are upset in Lahaina, because there's still some question about how broad the damage is, how many people are actually missing, how many children might be still missing as a result of these wildfires. So some people very upset because the public officials have not been entirely clear on that point. Now, it isn't clear to me whether they have the information and just don't want to share it, or if they're trying to be accurate. But here's the mayor of Maui, Richard Bison. I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, but here he is. Let's listen to this. This is pretty emotional.
I don't know.
Yes, you do. How many children are missing? You know.
I knew the answer to that. I'd be happy to answer that.
You have no estimate as to how many children are missing?
I guess we can end this right now. You guys want?
Sorry, this is one of the biggest questions that the people of Lahaina have, but you don't want to answer.
It always takes one or two to ruin it for everybody. Please, this is our only
Well, we could say that about you. You ruined it for everyone.
You're welcome to say it. You're the media. You can say whatever you want.
You're a disaster.
All right. Okay.
You've been the worst mayor we could possibly imagine.
You won't even wait.
Respect what? This is the most dismal response we've ever had.
You won't wait for your turn. You want to shout over these guys that are legitimate.
Why don't you give them the real answers then? Give them the real answers.
That's not his question.
Let him.
Yeah. You can go. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Emotions running high. Understandable. I would not want to be in his shoes. But at the same time, I think the level of incompetence on display is also unprecedented. A lot of people died. Here's another Maui resident, very critical of the government response. And I can certainly understand, especially while, when you look at what Joe Biden has done, and that ain't much.
Okay, I don't really know how to start this, but I just wanted to spread the message to people on mainland about what's really going on here, because the media isn't doing us any good at all. We're not okay. We're not okay. We are emotionally damaged. A lot of people are physically injured. A lot of people have lost their family members. Only 25% of the burn zone has been searched, and there's already been 110 deaths. And it hasn't been the high impact burn zone. Like, we're fucked. There's over 1,300 people without a roof over their head right now, me included. I'm lucky enough to have friends, but all of us are fucked. They're putting us in 30-day hotel stays in order to find everybody houses. But in a place where it's hard enough to find housing and hard enough to find jobs as it is, now that there is more people looking for jobs and there is less houses available on the island, everybody's fucked. Is that there is this grand sense of community here, like nothing like I've ever seen before. The gay pride marches, at Black Lives Matter protests, I have never seen so many people come together and give up their own beds for people that just lost their house. But that's the problem. It's that nobody else is doing anything. Nobody is helping. It's all Kanaka, people that live are the only ones that are helping at all. And that doesn't go to say that all of the people on mainland are doing anything wrong. It's not your fault, but the government helping at all. And nobody seems to have any idea what's going on over here. This is the biggest natural disaster. It's caused the most deaths in U.S. history. Isn't there more fucking going on? I've calmed down. I've talked to so many of my friends on mainland that quite literally have no idea that there is 1,300 people packed in shelters and living out of their cars and having to move onto the streets, and that aren't getting assistance and that aren't getting walked through these steps. They have no idea that the death count is so big. They have no idea that the majority of people that have perished are going to be the elderly and the children. They have no idea that our alarm system on this island is the biggest, it's the strongest in the entire nation. I think it might be the strongest in the whole world, but not a single fucking sign off. Why is this not bigger news? Our government fucked us, didn't give us any warning. We had to flee our houses. We lost fucking everything, and nobody knows. 1,300 people are displaced right now, and hundreds are fucking dead. Why does nobody know? And I'm sorry, I wanted to add one more thing. It's that this isn't a fast road. There's almost no recovering from this, especially not in a decade, maybe not in 2. Who's to say? But our biggest industry over here is tourism. And now that our biggest tourist city burnt down, we are going to lose so many jobs. So many people are going to continue to lose their houses. People are going to have to sell their land to sources that they shouldn't, just because nobody's going to be able to afford anything. This isn't a ball game. We're going to be working on this for decades, and we're going to need support for decades. And it's pretty obvious that no one is going to stick around and help. Nobody showed up in the first place, really. So just spread the message. Yeah. It's sad, but spread it.
People will help. People are coming. Maybe not Joe Biden, but people are going to help. Man, that one got me.
Fighting the Great Reset by leading the Great Resistance. Maverick News. The antivirus programs for your mind.
So our special guest will be along shortly. I'll just touch on some other news before we get back into the situation out there in Western Canada with the wildfires and our feature interview. There was a Russian missile attack, and that happened while Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky went to Sweden yesterday. That's his first visit to the country since the hostilities began in Ukraine just about a year ago. And so there was a Russian missile strike in the center of a northern city. There were some casualties. The war rages on. And the Swedish government says Zelensky will meet with officials from Harpsund, the prime minister's official summertime residence, about 120 kilometers west of Stockholm. That's about 75 miles. Zelensky will also meet with Sweden's King Carl the 16th, Gustav, and Queen Sylvia at a palace in that area. Sweden abandoned its policy of military non-alignment to support Ukraine with weapons and additional aid. The government says Sweden has provided 20 billion kroner, 1.7 billion euros in military support to Ukraine, including Archer artillery units, Leopard 2 tanks, CV-90 infantry fighting vehicles, grenade launchers, anti-tank weapons, mine-clearing equipment, and ammunition. Sweden has also applied for NATO membership, but they're still waiting for approval. So we'll see where all that goes. I think we'd be further ahead spending that kind of money on people and building. Personally, I don't understand war. I mean, I do, but I don't. Because it is insane. Enough of that. Have you guys been, have you seen these self-driving cars? Have you ever been in one? Has anyone in the chat ever been in a self-driving car? Autonomous cars? I've never been in a self-driving car. I've driven cars that are semi-autonomous. Even those are kind of impressive, the technology, like the lane keep assist and stuff. Anybody ever been in a self-driving car? Well, General Motors is dialing back a pilot program. I've got my notes here. Where'd we go? Right there. GM's Cruise autonomous vehicle unit has agreed to cut their fleet in half because they had 2 crashes in San Francisco. The State Department of Motor Vehicles asked for the reduction after a cruise vehicle without a human driver got into an accident with an emergency vehicle earlier this week. So the Department of Motor Vehicles is investigating. And I've got some footage of what it looks like. I mean, you've maybe seen video of this. What does it look like? Well, it looks like Knight Rider come to life. A car with no driver in it. So here's a cab.
Will we live?
Some guys going
Will
for
we die?
a ride in a
let's go.
driverless cab.
Oh, wait,
This
I
is
think
what
we have
it's
to
like.
open it with our phone.
So as I say, I'm dialing things back here a bit.
Ready to ride. Start your trip from the tablet in the car.
So I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what they achieved by just cutting things back by 50%, cutting their fleet of vehicles involved in this pilot program. But I guess it achieved something for them. Maybe, I don't know. So they're going to cut back by half. So they'll have no more than 50 driverless vehicles in operation during the day and 150 driverless vehicles in operation at night. So this comes a week after California regulators allowed Cruise and Google spinoff Waymo to operate autonomous robo-taxis throughout San Francisco at all hours, despite safety concerns from some people who point to recurring problems with unexpected stops and erratic behavior.
Enjoy your ride.
Self-driving on.
So what else do I have to tell you about this? I'm just going through. That's basically it. Obviously, they're investigating, trying to figure out exactly what went wrong with these two crashes. But the technology continues to advance.
10 questions about music.
And as artificial intelligence comes online and they combine AI with these autonomous driving,
Music festival takes place in Golden Gate Park.
these autonomous vehicles, it's going to reshape our society. That's why these car companies, folks, no longer call themselves automobile companies or automobile manufacturers. They call themselves mobility companies. They sort of changed the phrasing a few years ago, I noticed. Actually, going back maybe even about 7 years ago, maybe even a little earlier than that. So I guess what is the deal here? So the deal is that last Thursday around 10 p.m., the Cruise vehicle had a green light, entered an intersection, and was hit by the emergency vehicle responding to a call.
Seems to be working.
And all that was based on tweets coming from Cruise. So the robotaxi was carrying a passenger. That passenger was taken by ambulance to hospital. No severe injuries. Nevertheless, something to be very concerned about. I suppose a car with a human driver can get into an accident as well. But in this case, robo cars. So also on Thursday night, a Cruise car without a passenger collided with another vehicle in San Francisco. So that's 2 in one night. No comment from the fire department on this. So this robo-taxi apparently did almost immediately identify the emergency response vehicle as it came into view. And then at the intersection, visibility, I guess it's hampered somewhat by buildings, and it's not possible to see objects around a corner until they are very close to the intersection. So this autonomous vehicle detected the siren as soon as it was distinguishable from other background noise, but not soon enough. So we ended up with an accident. Cruise vehicles have driven more than 3 million autonomous miles now in the city and have interacted with emergency vehicles more than 168,000 times just in the first 7 months of this year alone.
Got a driver? No driver.
So the company is going to work with regulators, local municipal departments, and see if they can find ways to reduce the risk of future crashes.
What's going on here? We're supposed to be making.
And so they're dialing things back, as I say, cutting the number of vehicles, autonomous vehicles in the area in half while they continue to investigate
That was weird.
this situation.
To make that right.
The future has arrived. You're looking at it, and if you're a truck driver, you might want to think about a career change.
Yeah, you're right.
Or a taxi driver, or a limo driver, or a delivery driver. If you make your living driving, you might just find yourself on the chopping block, obsolete sooner than you know. This technology, as I say, it's expanding at an exponential rate. It was just a few years ago that they started testing this stuff, and they are using it now on a limited scale in larger cities, but it's coming to your town too.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Sorry, a little bit of a glitch there. I'm back though. Okay, so let me see what else I have for you here tonight, folks. Nissan also recalling 236,000 cars to fix a problem that can cause a loss of steering control. The recall will cover Sentra compact cars from 2020 to 2022. Tie rod ends. That's the problem. Nissan says that documents posted by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, these documents say if the tie rods become bent, they can break and affect the steering, increasing the risk of a crash. So if your steering wheel is off center or you feel vibration, dealers will inspect and replace any bent or broken tie rod ends. Excuse me. And they're coming up with some sort of new design that will replace the tie rod ends on both sides. No cost. It's a precautionary thing. I think it sounds more serious than it really is. Nevertheless, safety first. If you have one of those vehicles, you might want to check with your dealer or the company and get your vehicle looked at, because they will take care of that at no cost to you. Hurricane Hillary, another disaster. It's brewing out there. Oh, and I should also show you, Biden. Here he is right here on vacation. Still has not been to Maui. But tonight, taking another vacation, landing in Nevada. Isn't that fantastic? Nice work if you can get it. There he is. Presidente Biden. And another vacation in Nevada. Goes on a lot of vacations, that guy. I don't know, man. Um, okay, so our guest should be here momentarily. And here's Hurricane Hillary picking up steam in Los Cabos down in Mexico, heading for the US. Give you some footage of this. Big concern for people, obviously. Give you some sense of what's going on with that. So the winds are whipping up there. There is good news on the Hurricane Hillary front, though, and that good news is that even though it is bad, looking bad, it has been downgraded from a Category 4 to a Category 2 hurricane. It is expected, however, to bring severe flooding to some areas. Tropical storm warnings are now in effect for more than 42 million Americans in Southern California, with the Hurricane Hillary, expected to make the first tropical storm that hit the region since Hurricane Nora in 1997. So Hurricane Hillary is entering cooler water and starting to weaken. That's what I say. The hurricane has been downgraded to a Category 2 with maximum sustained winds of 110 miles per hour. But that is still wickedly powerful. So the center of the hurricane is 285 miles southeast of Punta Eugenia, Mexico, and 640 miles southeast of San Diego. It's moving at about 17 miles per hour to the north-northwest, and weather officials, experts say that the storm will continue to weaken as it continues into increasingly colder water over the coming days, and especially when it reaches land. And yes, flooding is expected in many areas when it does finally make landfall. So everybody kind of keeping a close eye on that. Here's more footage of Hurricane Hillary in Mexico. Show you here. Wow. Very strong. But some people still keeping a sense of humor through it all. And I knew this was going to happen. It was inevitable, right? It was this had to happen. It just had to. Come on, you know what I'm talking about. Here she is. Here she is. Oh my goodness. Hurricane Hillary. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Here she is. She's going to turn and face you, and you'll recognize this lady.
14 miles per hour, and forecasters say it will weaken again as it tracks parallel with the Baja Peninsula.
Of course.
14 miles per hour, and forecasters say it will weaken again as it tracks parallel with the Baja Peninsula. 14 miles per hour, and forecasters say it will weaken again as it tracks parallel with the Baja Peninsula.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton. I wonder if anybody even thought about that when they named the hurricane. Do you think? Hurricane Hillary. So we're just waiting on Michael Bator. he's the Burlington candidate of record for the People's Party of Canada. And as we told you, so he says he's going to be here to join us on the program shortly, and he'll be sharing his personal experience getting away from the wildfire out in Kelowna, and we'll have a deeper discussion with him on this issue as well. So looking forward to the conversation with him. Hopefully he'll be here shortly. He's a little bit late, but I'll take a little break here and just send him a message and make sure if he's still coming along and will join us. He might be having a little trouble getting into the studio. Leave it with me. I'll be right back.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so back to the wildfire situation. Michael says he'll be along shortly. I just got a message from him. He's just running a little late, but he will be here. So grateful for that. A Maui resident is calling out Joe Biden for ignoring Lahaina, in the aftermath and really still ongoing, this ongoing wildfire crisis. I hate to play a clip off CNN, but this is also heartbreaking and true. So let's listen to what this lady has to say.
And it's really, and right now the Maui community is helping the Maui community. And it's really affected me because where's the president? He decides to come here this week, to come here next week. I mean, like, where aren't we Americans too? Like, we're part of the United States, but why are we getting put in the back pocket? Why are we being ignored? And
Yeah, and if you go back and you look at the history of Hawaii and the way that it became part of the United States, I mean, it's kind of a sad story. And the people who live in Hawaii, the native Hawaiians, I think over time, or through history, they've largely been, not treated well, not treated properly. And right now they need help more than ever. So come on, Joe, step up. It's time. Do your job. That's what being president really should be all about. China has launched military drills around Taiwan. Why? Well, because of what the U.S. is doing in the area. They've launched military drills around Taiwan. And it's being viewed as a serious warning to separatist forces, as it's being described. And this is an expected response to Vice President William Lai's visit to the United States, drawing condemnation from Taipei. Lai is the frontrunner to become Taiwan's president in elections in January, returned from the United States Friday, and made official stopovers on his way to and from Paraguay, but gave speeches while he was in the U.S. China views democratically governed Taiwan as its own territory. You know, it's Taiwan. The United States, you know, I think that, again, the stance they're taking on the situation in Taiwan is inflammatory. And we're seeing more escalation there. Seems like the U.S. wants a war, but can't afford it. Not financially. I don't think the U.S. can afford it, and I don't think they have the resources to sustain it. It looks to me like the U.S. and NATO are struggling to just deal with what they're dealing with in Ukraine. And, you know, when you're the biggest military and you have as many military bases around the world as the United States does, you know, it can be difficult to maintain your grasp on power. You know what I'm saying? The bigger you are, the more you have to control, the more you have, the more difficult it becomes to manage all of that, and the more costly. So China, again, kind of ramping things up there, escalating things. Things are not looking good. And again, let's take a little break here, and I'll just check on a couple of things while we wait for our guest to arrive. Should be here just about any minute now. Don't go away. I'll be right back.
Fear not the storm, for truth is on our side. Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
So back to the wildfire situation. A Hawaii official who has expressed concern in the past with equity delayed releasing water for more than 5 hours as wildfires raged, according to a new report. He says access to water should be predicated on conversations about equity. This, according to the Hawaii official who is under fire for delaying access to water during the Maui wildfires. M. Kaleo Manuel, former deputy director of the Hawaii Commission on Water Resource Management, waited for more than 5 hours to release water during the wildfires that devastated Maui. So there was a live stream debate that was hosted by the University of Hawaii last year, and Manuel described water as a sacred god. He said, "Let water connect us and not divide us." We can share it, but it requires true conversations about equity. How do we coexist with the resources we have? He was a former Obama Foundation leader and was part of a program by the former president's nonprofit to help participants with coaching and practical skill building for social change. Here's a clip from the New York Post from Manuel. I'm going to share it with you here, and we're going to have our guest on in just a moment. I see him in the back room there, and we'll just finish up with this, and then we'll get to our feature interview for tonight. Oh, hang on.
We use water today, using modern techniques to kind of elevate how we use water today, right? And we can be mindful of our impacts to the resource. And with that context, it's like the traditional system was really built on collective contribution and benefit, and not the individual benefit of a specific project over others, right? There was always this communal, you put in and you get out, right? But that's totally different in this Western capitalistic kind of economy that we live in. It's very extractive, individualistic approaches. And when you get into that space, you create the whiskeys for drinking, waters for fighting scenario where it's us and them. And so, you know, we all need water to live. So really my motto is always like, let water connect us and not divide us. Like we can share it, but it requires true conversations about equity, you know, like water equity. It's not something that's talked about a lot, but understanding how do we, in this island space that we occupy, in this short period of time we're here, how do we leave it better, live, coexist with the resources that we have, and then not make that burden again something we pass on to the next generations. I think that's really important.
How about when there's a fire, you turn on the fire hydrants and put out the fire? He waited 5 hours before turning on the tap. Here's our guest for tonight. Thank you for joining us, Michael. This is Michael Bator.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on, Rick. I really appreciate that. Honored to be here. Sorry I'm late. We're in Whistler. That was our escape plan. And today we decided to take in some sights. And I had no idea that the gondola would take that long. So my apologies, sir.
No problem. We have a lot to talk about tonight anyway. So we're just happy to have you here. And I know that you've had a bit of a rough ride out there in Western Canada. Can you tell us what happened? You were up near Kelowna and
well,
the wildfires, you had to get out.
Well, the thing was, we started out in Calgary. Just to give you the background, we started out in Oakville, Ontario, went up north, you know, cutting across and went to a bunch of great places. And then from Calgary is when the adventure started. So our next stop was Kelowna. It's Okanagan Lake Resort. It's on the lake just west of Kelowna. So, you know, a couple 15, 20 minutes. I kind of noticed plumes of smoke or puffs of smoke as we were driving towards it, but it looked pretty far away, right? Everything was far away. Everything looked cool. I kind of kidded with her that I think we're going towards the fire, and we kind of laughed it off. We got in it later because it was a bit of a drive. And we just finished dinner. So probably about an hour in to arriving, maybe 9 o'clock, 9:30, the sun had gone down. We had arrived at sunset. All of a sudden the flames were on the top of the mountain. So we're halfway down the mountain where the road is. And then you go down to the beach. So, you know, we were on the middle there and all the houses are like villas on the mountain. We got the knock at the door and we're like, whoa, it kind of, you know, who knows we're here. So it kind of startled us a little bit. And the owner of the property was warning us that, hey, there's an evacuation order out there. You guys got to get out of here. And I'm like, wow, okay. So my dad taught me a long time ago. It's not my first evacuation. I was evacuated in Mississauga, I think 1977 or something like that. Mavis, we had the chlorine thing, derailment. My dad was just really calm. We'd stayed in, then they said, oh, now you got to evacuate. We're listening. We just packed up some clothes and went. So having that experience from my father, I did the same thing. just really, we just said, okay, let's, take the food out of the fridge. I'll start being a pack mule, double check, had a full tank of gas because my dad said always keep a half tank whenever you stop somewhere. And then I just said, hey, let's go to Whistler. Like, and she was freaking out a bit, like it's 5.5, 6 hours through hairpin turns late at night. And I'm like, yeah, I don't care. Let's just go. I got enough adrenaline. So that's how the adventure kind of started there. And then as we were driving, almost hit a deer. There's some animals scurrying around a little bit as we were pulling out down the road. Not like those movies you see where they're all like freaking out going, but I definitely had to pay attention. And then and you could see the ashes. That's what freaked me out. When we drove in, there was nothing. Like, you just came in, you saw a bunch of smoke, and it looked like a million miles away. And then all of a sudden, driving out, we saw ashes. I'm like, I think those are ashes because I'm not getting any bug splats. And then we hit another road stop. And then about 15 minutes up the road again, now they're moving people again. And it just kept moving and moving and moving up the road for the evacuation. So that's the story coming out of there. Any other questions about that?
Yeah, well, how fast was the fire moving? Do you have any indication? Is it? I guess
Well,
it's the wind that carries it, right?
Well, yeah. So in hindsight, because once we got settled, I was able to I had talked to some of my buddies. I was supposed to visit one of my buddies here. I'm a PPC guy and he's a CPC guy, and we like to chirp each other on Twitter sometimes, eh? So we were going to hang out a bit, have a beer, and do it in person, and a couple other people. But we had to split, so I hopped on a space the next morning to see what was going on, and he told me that some wind thing the wind just picked up, changed direction, and he was there in 2003 when he lost his house in 2003, and he said that this was really, really fast. The fires in the last 20 years in the Okanagan Valley have traditionally been, not as big, or they're very slow moving. And it was very unusual, he said, for a fire to move that fast, go down a mountain, and hop a lake. Some people are speculating, because of what happened in Maui, what's happening up in Northwest Territories. They're speculating different things are happening. We do know that the fires in Quebec and Alberta during the by-election, we know there was so many arsonists caught. So, I wouldn't rule anything out, but at this particular time, personally, I wasn't able to see anything. Like I said, it looked normal, except this fire was miles and miles and miles away. And then all of a sudden it's on the top of the mountain, just where we drove. Like, literally, we're pulling out. I posted the picture. It's like just right there, like within an hour. So it was kind of scary that way, but there's no time really to be scared. They tell you to leave, you pack up, you make sure you get out. And I'm really happy that my dad taught me those skills and making sure I had the gas in the tank, and so that I could make it to Whistler.
Yeah. So was there a lot of traffic? Was it difficult to navigate through that?
Well, I think that we got out in time because we didn't unpack our bags. So the only thing we really unpacked was, we made sausages and put eggs and milk in the fridge, stuff like that, because we knew that it was, like more of a cottagey villa type thing where we could cook. So that's all we really had to pack up. And then the other thing was going up and down the hill with all the bags. And so I think we got out a bit earlier. There was a gentleman, 91 years old. His grandson came down and flying down the road, and they had closed it, but he went flying through the road and just said, look, I got to go get my granddad. He got down there. And it's really unfortunate. I'm so sad for him because that was their home where he lived with his wife, who passed away last year. And one of the ladies reached out on Twitter to tell me about the story because it was happening right behind me. He was the guy behind me. I'm number 12, and he's like 6 up the hill a bit more. And they lost all of the memorabilia for their mother, like, their little drawings, the things that you drew or they kept when you were a kid. And so I'm really sad for the people there that have lost their homes and things like that. It really was sad. Traffic wise, I'm telling you, there was guys bolting down, there was more traffic coming down to the roadblocks that I never ran into anybody. for a bit. Like I didn't run into anybody, but I had a lot of traffic coming down. And one of the guys at the stops, because I said, hey, you know, we're going north. Like, should we know anything? And he just said, well, the road's closed and we're going to be closing it up more, even it's moving really fast, son. So just keep going. And then he had told me about the cars that went through the stop. And so a lot of people are going to get their kids, their family, their elderly parents. I don't know how the roadblocks work that way. I was going the other way, but I was informed by one of the roadblocks that people were jumping it to try to get back.
So you, well, I'll ask you this first. We just ran the premier, and stating that there is a state of emergency now, and they're imposing these travel restrictions, telling people not to come there for tourism. Is that affecting people there very much? Are you like, I mean, if you're a tourist, I guess you're not welcome now in the area. So how does that affect you? I mean, you don't live there. So what's going on with that?
Well, that was why I instinctually made the commitment to go to our next destination, Whistler. Like I said, my girlfriend was freaking out. It's 5.5 hours and like really crazy mountains. And I'm like, nah, we're just going. So for me personally, I don't think it affected me, but my other buddy, he's from Burnaby and he does business down in Kelowna and he just bailed out. I would imagine, judging by the destruction that I saw, like I didn't really hit me till the next day, right? Like, cause you're in fire mode, right? My dad told me, hey, there's a fire, and then he applied the metaphor to, an exam or, 2 out in the 9th inning and the winning run on second. Like he was trying to explain to me how his job was to focus, right? So we just focused. And then he said, when your fire's out or when the emergency's done, that's the time that you cry, you get mad, you sleep, you do whatever. You just suck up everything. Otherwise, you're going to fail. So that was the mentality I had. I was just like super adrenaline, super awake, super freaked out with 10-kilometer-an-hour turns that you literally slam your brakes on to go around. And then it really didn't hit me till the next day when I was talking to my buddy James on that Twitter space. Somebody had sent me a picture of our resort. James went, oh my God, that's like, he's been there for years. It's iconic. Everybody knows the Okanagan Lake Resort. And to think that I was just there and now it's burnt down, like literally hours later. And then I got a picture from a gentleman on Twitter who was on a boat on the other side. It was just, you could just see my place in flames, like number 12. We were the guy hidden by the tree and it was just burning. Like, it's really sad, really sad. And to think that, like, what if that guy hadn't have warned us? What if the system failed like it did in Maui? What if, we fell asleep and didn't hear it, or that guy didn't care, right? Like, if we'd fallen asleep, we probably wouldn't be here now. We would have got smoke inhalation and just been fried. So I'm really thankful to the people that were monitoring the situation. I'm thankful to the property owner for doing that. And my heart goes out to the people. And it's such a beautiful resort and such a rich history. To have that all taken away, I mean, it just makes you feel like crying. You really feel for them, especially the story the one lady told me about her dad living there and losing all the mementos from it.
Yeah, and I in the email that you sent out today to the people on your mailing list for your PPC campaign and your friends, you talked a little bit about the possible causes of this. And when I'm on social media, I'm seeing on the one hand the mainstream media, some activists saying it's climate change that's causing all of this, and on the other side, I see people saying no, it's the Klingons and a death ray from above. But I was glad to see a voice of reason come from you. I think you kind of you found the middle ground there, and maybe I can just get you to comment and give me your thoughts with regard to all of that.
Oh, well, definitely. Thank you for asking that. That's another lesson I learned from my dad. And if you'd noticed in that newsletter I sent, I learned a lot of the things that prepared me for this from my father. And one of the other things that he said was, I remember saying something about the Russians during the Cold War and, oh, they're in Nicaragua, blah, blah, blah. And then he just scolded me and said the Americans are just as evil. They lie just as much. They both liars. They're both going to give you chunks of truth. And son, it's your job to put the pieces of truth and pick them out of the lies and try to put them together. So I know for sure, um, I mean, like after the last 3 years, who knows? Maybe we do have a Star Wars program that Reagan started and then it's all hush hush. I don't know. I can't verify that. And at the same time, you got these climate activists, and that I can pretty much verify is crap because, you can go look at the studies, you can see all the censored scientists, you can see the narrative. If you understand the lies of COVID, you're going to understand the lies of climate change. But I wanted to really address what I feel were the real causes of it. And I kind of picked my brother-in-law's brain. He's a fireman with Toronto as well. I think he's just currently figuring out his retirement now. But I was talking to him when I was in Manitoba, and everyone's freaking out: climate change, climate change, climate change. A lot of those fires were arson, 42 of them. Like, I'm not saying there's arson here, but these climate activists, there's even eco activists. Like, seriously, buddy? So your agenda, you're trying to sell a lie by actually propagating it yourself. So I tried to find the middle ground and say that, this activism, they're saying, oh, climate change, you can't spray for the spruce bugs, right? And you sit there and go, oh, okay, well, I don't spray for the spruce bugs. Now I'm losing all the spruce. And guess what? Now I've created a whole bunch of kindling for forest fire because, and then the other thing that we don't do anymore is controlled burns, culling the forest, going out there and getting the dead wood out, piling it up, burning it. The Indians were fabulous at this. And the other thing stupid with those climate, I don't know, I don't want to put them down too much, right? Because, everyone falls for stuff sometimes. But I mean, our forest fires have been going down for the last 20 years, right? And the other thing I'm noticing too is our funding for forest fires is now decreasing. So I thought I was paying money to help the climate, and you're rolling back all the things that actually help the climate, like spraying for the bugs that cause the dead trees, paying for the people to go through the forest and pick up the dead wood and burn it. You're not hiring enough people. You don't have enough water bombers. Like, I mean, I don't know what year it was, but we sent 3 water bombers to Brazil after we told the military that they couldn't have any equipment. And it just doesn't make sense. Those 3 water bombers should have been stationed in Alberta like they asked for it. And they could have been helping out in the Okanagan Valley or their own fire. My girlfriend's son, he's an aspiring fireman again. So he's been fighting, he's stationed out of Cochrane, and he was out fighting the Alberta fires. And I just think it's a real shame that people think from the city, they have no clue what's going on, that 80 to 90% of the fires are started by humans, carelessness, and 10% are started by weather, lightning strikes, unusual winds, things like that. It's usually just some guy not putting his fire out right, flicking a cigarette, doing something dumb like a controlled burn that isn't controlled. So I really don't think it's climate change. I think that's all a hoax. If you got sucked in on COVID, then I think you're going to get sucked in on climate. And it's our job to really educate the city folk and these other folk that just don't have the critical thinking skills, Rick.
Yeah. So what about the people there? Are they finding accommodations for people? Are people, do people at least have a roof over their heads, or what do you, are you seeing? Do you even know where you're at?
Well, I was advised to go to, I think it was a Canadian Tire or a Home Depot, something like that. I can't remember right now at the moment because I didn't write it down. I didn't process it, but they did have some care centers, and I believe they were in Kelowna. And there's also Vernon above. And my understanding is yesterday, as I was coming to the gravity of just how fast that fire went, and that I literally was in the building that burnt down just 24 hours earlier, maybe not less than that, maybe 12, because we hardly got any sleep. And they basically had to move another one. And I'm so touched by this gentleman and the people on Twitter offering, right? They saw that, hey, I got evacuated, and people reaching out and saying, hey, I got a farm up in Vernon. Do you need a hand? Like, I got 30 acres, you can bring an RV, a tent, I really want to help out. And I'm really touched. And it gives me hope that the true Canadian spirit is still alive. That people can still be that compassionate, that can still be that smart. Um, I'm really scared we're losing that since Trudeau. And it was really a great, great thing to see the people stand together, regardless of skin, color, whether you're rich or poor. Everybody just lending a hand where they could. That's what I've seen so far.
Yeah, kind of like Canada again.
Yeah, you know what? It's really sad you have to have a tragedy like this or 9/11 to realize the compassion. But if anyone attended Ottawa, you know, we still have the Canadian spirit of being tough, Canadian spirit of being nice, and the Canadian spirit of giving someone a leg up and feeding someone that needs it, and not being too proud to take the help yourself sometime when you need it too. So I was really proud the fact that the people there, and I can't even say enough, knowing that my father and what he was through, being a fireman and some of the things that he's seen, how tough it is to get out there for 12 hours at a time in flames, the way he looked and acted some days when I was a kid, I could just see him worn out. And I'm just really appreciative of all the first responders there. They're putting their lives on the line. They're putting their safety on the line so that you can be safe. So my thing is maybe we shouldn't have Pride Month. We should have First Responder Month. Like, let's start respecting the people that really deserve it and not some type of Marxist revolution racist thing. It just blows me away. So it's really great to see true Canadians sticking together here in Kelowna.
And so what are your plans from this point?
Well, our plans were to stay in Kelowna for about 3 days, and 3 days in Whistler, and then 3 days in Victoria. So because of the situation and not knowing if roads and how fast the fire was going, I didn't know enough about it. I just knew I needed to get as far away as I could. So our next stop is Whistler. So we're here today. We're going to leave for Victoria. Apparently there's a small fire there too, but I was advised by somebody that's from Victoria that's visiting here now that it's not that big a deal. It shouldn't be an issue. So we'll be on the island for the next 5 or so days. And then we're going to start heading back through the United States, hit Montana, Idaho, I believe North Dakota. I think there's something in North Dakota that PPC is trying to hook up with somebody. So I might get a chance to go down there and meet somebody to help make a connection. And then back to Windsor, and we're going to do a what do they call fundraiser for Saba Fira. I can't remember it.
Savavisi, yeah.
Savavisi. So anyway, so Savavisi, we've got this thing. We're going to have a space on the Thursday. You can follow my Twitter. You can follow Rick. I'm sure Rick's totally on top of it. And I'm really honored to be able to have the time and an invite to head out to the spaghetti dinner to raise some money. For the context of it, what I know, and you probably could explain it better, can you tell us a little bit about that fundraiser and this really heroic trucker?
Well, he has legal bills, as some of the truckers do. I believe he was the last trucker to leave Ottawa, and he's facing charges. So he, and the funds were frozen by the government that were donated. So a lot of that money just hasn't found its way to the truckers that need the assistance. And that's what this fundraiser is all about, to help him cover his legal bills.
Yeah, I think it's a really great what the PPC Windsor and the PPC or the Freedom Fighters that are putting it on. Really, it's going to take a lot of groups to get together, a lot of leaders to really make sure that we can hold the government accountable and to look after our own, right? Sometimes, you know what? It just don't matter whether you're Christian or Muslim. If they're sexualizing your kids, you stand up. It doesn't matter if I'm a conservative and you're a PPC guy or that guy doesn't vote at all. What matters is that we're standing together against the things that are hurting our country and our children and the things that are injustice. And I think us getting together and holding people accountable is awesome. And just to give the audience just a little bit more context, he was the gentleman that was dragged out of his truck and they beat the shit out of him. He was piss and blood the next day. They dropped him off in the middle of nowhere, right? And then I remember around the same time, we had eco terrorists causing over $2 to $3 million with tomahawks and hatchets and axes and blowing shit up and nothing. They don't even know where they are. Hey, and they can't find all of the COVID money, 600 million or whatever the values are, but damn, I can find that single mom in BC who donated $20. So it's going to take a lot of us to hold these people accountable.
I hear what you're saying. Michael, is there anything else you'd like to add tonight or think that I might be missing?
No, I think you've caught everything, and it's such an honor to be on the show. And I hope to meet you when I'm out there in Windsor. That's for sure. Really a great experience, great show, and thanks for your patience while I have never been to Whistler, so I was like, oh hey, we should go on the gondola, honey. Yeah, that sounds great. And then I'm like looking, going, it's more than an hour, honey. So thank you so much, sir.
No problem. I'm privileged to have you on the program. Thank you for taking the time tonight and sharing your experience and your perspective on this.
It's my pleasure. You have yourself a great evening, and to all your listeners, you guys have a great evening, great weekend. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right, and just one last thing, Michael.
Oh, yes.
You're the PPC candidate for Burlington, correct? So
Yes,
how can people find you if they want more information, especially people in your constituency, in your
Oh,
riding?
well, the best way you can find me is to go to my website. It's Michael, spelled the traditional way, A-M-I-C-H-A-L. And my last name, even though I pronounce it Bator, like all the other Canadians, it's actually Bator. It's Polish, so it's B-A-T-O-R .com. And then it's the same on Twitter. It's Michael Bator 6, Michael Bator 6 on Facebook. But if you go to my website, you can just click anything, find the rumbles, you can find my email, stuff like that. And hey, Rick, thanks a lot for letting me do that. I almost forgot.
My pleasure. Thank you, sir. You have a great night.
You too, sir. Bye, everybody.
Take care. Michael Bator, PPC candidate of record in riding in Burlington in Ontario, Canada, but traveling across Canada and the United States, and ran right smack dab into that wildfire situation out there in Kelowna and got out safe. And as the thumbnail says on many of the channels carrying this broadcast, he got out just in time, he said in the email that he sent out. And so when I realized that he was in that situation, I absolutely had to reach out to him. And I'm very grateful for him coming on the program and sharing, as I say, his experience and his perspective, not only on the wildfires, but also on, the issues surrounding the wildfires as well. So very grateful. Stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
And I do see comments in there, people asking me tonight, Michael, I'm gonna wait on that. We'll do it the next time he's on the program. We'll get to it though. Don't worry. Again, very grateful to him for doing that. It is now 7:47 p.m. I'm going to go to the phones. So hang around. I'm going to get them set up and we'll be right back.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Join the conversation. Call 1-833-975-3733. That's 1-833-975. Free. Speak up. Speak out. Make your voice heard. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom by defending your right to free speech. Be a Maverick. Join us.
Before we get to the phones, I'll just remind everyone that you can support the channel by donating at freedomreporters.com. Freedomreporters.com. Takes you to the PayPal page. You can also donate by sending in Rumble rants over on the Rumble channel if you're subscribed there. It's important that we get people to subscribe on Rumble because we are being censored and suppressed, and you know the drill over on YouTube, Facebook, and the other censorship platforms. In fact, I never know anymore from night to night if we're going to suffer the wrath of the YouTube, Facebook censors. So please, if you haven't, consider subscribing on our Rumble channels. And we are broadcasting on both of our main Rumble channels tonight. You can also donate at maverickdonations.com. That's the Give, Send, Go account. You go over there and we've got a page set up. Great people at Give, Send, Go, Christian-based organization. And super nice. They send out very nice emails to the people that set up accounts with them. And they call you and pray for you. They actually do that, which is kind of cool. I've never had a company pray for me before, but people over at Give, Send, Go do that. So I thought that's pretty darn cool. Super nice. So maverickdonations.com or freedomreporters.com. And you can still subscribe on the YouTube channel as well. Our YouTube channels, we're on several of those and on various other platforms as well. And we're broadcasting. Thank you to Kevin Michelizzi for allowing us to combat censorship by sharing his platforms on VK and YouTube and some other platforms, and to Lori for also sharing her access to her channels. And she has a new Facebook page set up, so you can subscribe to her on there. And I should also tell you that we have a great Strange Bedfellows lined up for you tonight. A great guest, Michael Kruppa, and he is not a communist. I know Lori keeps bringing communists on the show. Socialists, communists, whatever. They're not the neoliberal woke type that, we're all having trouble with these days. But, Michael is, he's a conservative. And, I'm just looking for information on him. So anyway, you're definitely going to want to check it out. He's over in Poland, and we've got an interview with him tonight. So very, very cool. And it's going to be a great conversation. So you're not going to want to miss it. And what can I tell you about it? Is Michael Kruppa. He's a Polish historian and commentator. Man, he is so well read. Super smart guy. He has a PhD in American paleoconservatism. He hosts Votum TV. It's a podcast about the history of Poland. And he's an American conservative. He says he's an anti-communist. So the conversation, very, very much different than a lot of what we've been presenting on that program, on previous broadcasts. We've had some pretty left-wing people on. But that's what Strange Bedfellows is all about. It's about bringing on people with a variety of different perspectives, different political views, and then through the course of conversation, show that quite often there is common ground that can be reached, right? So that's pretty cool. And actually, Michael grew up here in Ontario, Canada, not far from where I live. So we have some things in common, and we'll be talking about that tonight as well. So pretty interesting show coming up later on these channels, all these channels where we're broadcasting tonight. Strange Bedfellows, that's at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it looks like we are ready to go to the phones here. So let me just make the final adjustments, get the phone system piped into the stream so that we can hear everybody and get the screen configured properly. And we are ready to rock and roll. And let's go to our first caller of the night. Who do we have on the line? Go ahead.
You got the mouth of the South, buddy.
Of course.
The man without a plan, the master of all disasters.
How are you tonight, sir?
Great call. Great interview tonight, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. The guy knows what he's talking about. A lot of people are wondering why the fires are getting more and more and more common. Okay. What happens now? Okay. Once a fire happens, especially Lytton, I heard Lytton might be going back up on fire again.
Yeah.
Remember Lytton, the town of BC that burnt down 2 years ago?
Yep.
So what happens is the trees act as a wind barrier, right? Somewhat. But when the trees burn, you have no more wind barrier. So expect worse in the future. Okay. Obviously, I don't believe I believe it's being weaponized somehow. And he said it spot on. Your what was his name, Michael?
Yep.
He said it's spot on. You got all these climate change guys out there. Okay, they don't get their own way. Okay, they make their prophecies happen. Okay, they'll poison the waters. They'll burn the trees. They'll do whatever they have to do in order to get their point, right? Because they can't be wrong.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, we don't have proof and we don't know for sure, but but if you're looking for motivation,
I find it very bizarre.
Yeah,
I find it very bizarre that this year, okay, unlike last year, and they can say what they want about, it's the Earth's boiling. I'll tell you what, in the Northwest Territories today, okay, people were wearing their parkas.
Yeah.
That's it was 5 degrees in the morning. It's not hot in the Northwest Territories.
Yeah.
Okay, so something's going on, and somebody's got agenda somewhere along the line because it's not cool. Okay, it's not cool at all, and people are going to try and be fooled by it. I'm not fooled by any of it. Really, I'm not. Now you got one or two, or okay, let's say 30 fires a year. Okay, the average in BC 30 fires. When you have 400 of them, we got problems. Okay, and I get it. It's especially Kelowna, man. I feel really sorry for the people in Northwest Territories and Kelowna area, or anybody being hit by any fire anywhere. Okay, it's tough to get out. And like he said, 12 hours later, he could have succumbed from the smoke and died. Right?
Mm-hmm.
He would have stayed 12 hours. That's how fast it moves, people. So I watched the fire up in the Mission Hills. Mission is a little town outside Abbotsford, BC. Okay, not far from Vancouver. But I watched the fire go there one year, and it moves fast. Okay, it moves the speed of the wind.
Yeah,
and it changes direction with the wind. Right, so you see fire, get the hell away from it, man. Run.
Yeah.
Run. Okay, and they taught us actually when I was the natives. A friend of mine who's native in Chilliwack, I think it's Chehalis is the res he belongs to. He said if you're ever caught near the fire, okay, and you have a water stream or a brook, you get down in it. That may be your last chance, right? So, the waters that run in BC are usually 40, 45 degrees, even in the summer. It's ice cold, but you got to get down in that brook, and hopefully it passes over you, right, or passes by you. But yeah, I feel really sorry for the people out there, man. I really do. It's something's going on. I can't, till the evidence is out there, right? It's all speculation now, but I'm not no conspiracy theorist, but when you have all these fires, and we're talking hundreds of them, man, it's ridiculous, right?
Yep.
Ridiculous.
Well, yeah, and I mean,
So,
it's exacerbated by, as Michael said, they're not clearing out the dead wood the way they used to. The environmentalists are against controlled burns, which also are used to, take out kindling and fuel that causes these kinds of fires to spread. And these are problems. It's called forestry management, and they don't like forestry management. They don't like it. So,
well, exactly. And then you got governments that want to come in with the EV battery, okay, and they want to extract all the minerals from the ground. But guess what? Sorry, you can't extract the minerals from the ground because there's trees there. Well, guess what? There's no more trees there. They all burnt. Now we're going to the ground, right? I'm hearing that conspiracy theory too. Okay.
well,
I'm hearing all.
I mean, we don't know. Like I do know that when down in Hawaii. Now you have real estate people trying to scoop up the land, right? And that doesn't mean necessarily that they went in and started the fires, but they certainly are taking advantage of the situation. And that's not uncommon. It's not maybe even unexpected, but it sure isn't very, very nice.
It's not cool at all when I've seen it too. I've seen I don't know if it's true or not, but I did see it. Oprah Winfrey and all the Hollywood elites, okay, that do have properties down there. If people are saying it's funny how their properties never burned. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm just seeing it on social media. You don't know what to believe anymore.
That's the problem, and
that is
social media. There's just so much stuff out there. And, there are reasons too why those properties owned by richer people don't burn. And it's because a lot of them are surrounded by acres and acres of land with manicured lawns that are not really much, they don't lend themselves to the spread of the fire. And they're newer construction in Lahaina. A lot of the homes that burned were wood structures, older, more susceptible to burning just from embers landing on them. And they're up against, forested areas, trees all around them and things. But so there are other factors to consider there as well. And it's easy to fuel a conspiracy when you point a finger at someone like Oprah, who has a crap load of money and has already gone in there and bought up a lot of land. But anyway, you slice it, it's kind of scuzzy for real estate speculators 100%. To go in there and try and buy up land from people in distress.
Well, over here in Canada, you discussed it, I think, January, February, the 8th fire. Remember the 8th fire? Everybody out there remembers the 8th fire or 7th fire or 9th fire, whatever they were calling it.
Yeah.
And you had the people out there saying, we got to tear it all down. We got to burn it all down and start over. And now look where we're at today. So, you know what? I'm no conspiracy theorist, but when I hear shit like that, and then 6 months later it's burning down, who knows?
Yeah. Well, we'll see where we go in the in the weeks ahead. I think what we are really looking at is some incompetence, serious incompetence on the part of some officials, like the guy who didn't turn the water on for 5 hours, and the guy who didn't turn on the sirens, and I mean, they did try to go in and warn people in other ways with megaphones and things, but it was obviously completely inadequate. I don't think there's any excuse for this, the number of casualties.
Well, it's easy to point the finger at the government too, right? For a lot of people, especially you have the military, the Air Force that's sitting on their ass in Trenton, wherever, right? There's one up in Manitoba, Wainwright. There's all kinds of military bases where they're sitting on their asses. Okay, you got the Air Force. Now I don't see any air water bombers that were out there before. Okay, when there's a fire, they should be the first ones to be responding to it. Is the military, and get your ass in gear, get the planes up, get the water bombers down, get the fires out, right? But no, they got to wait. They got to wait till a town burns down and people perish, right? before the military gets involved. I seen an interview with the Turd today. He was in northern Alberta. Did you catch that one, Rick?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Talking about the fires. See the support he had there? He's doing his interview. There's only 3 people in there, and just a smirk on his face. And you know what? It's disgusting. It is 100%.
Yeah.
Now I get it. You're the prime minister. There's a disaster. You should go there. I get it. He's doing a little bit more than Joe Biden. At least he showed up. Okay. But it's disgusting, right? Just, there's going to be no money going around because guess what? We don't have the money. The money went to Ukraine. You have Ukraine panhandling in Sweden or Switzerland or wherever the hell they were today, right? Zelensky.
Yep.
Right. We don't have the money. Okay. And they're going to find out in Hawaii really fast. Okay. Because that's a big cleanup, man.
Yeah.
You got to rebuild. Okay. The same thing with Kelowna. You're going to find out really fast because I don't think there's a property in Kelowna that's not worth $1 million or more.
Yeah.
Right? We're not. Right.
Yeah,
That's just the average.
Got a woman here who has a response to what Trudeau is doing out there. Let me just bring her up here. I'll share this with you folks. There she is. Listen to this.
I cannot handle another ounce of Justin Trudeau in this country. So the area that I live in is literally on fire. People are being evacuated. Wildfires everywhere. And you see this right here? You go to CTV News, and us as Canadians, we can't even see what is going on in our country because of new laws that Justin Trudeau has passed. We can't see it. So what, has this turned into a communist country now? I don't have any words. I am so done with Canada. Just so done. I cannot handle another ounce of.
So yeah, people upset because you can't even get important information, news about these wildfires. Like our news page has been blocked in Canada as well on Facebook. And that's Trudeau's doing.
Well, when you have you had a government now, okay, that came in and strong-armed a social media company for them to force them to put up mainstream content, okay, and make them pay.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. I've never heard of anything like it in my life. What do you think? You're the Rizzuto crime family out of Montreal? Yeah. That's exactly what they're doing, Rick. They're using the same tactics as the mob, and you're calling yourself the government. There's no free, fair, anything about that one. I don't blame Meta at all.
No, I don't either, honestly. I mean, it's unfortunate we got swept up in that too, but I get it.
Yeah, you come to me, Rick, and you say, "Hey, Leo, I want you to pay me, okay, for running your content on my Maverick News, and we're gonna have a fist fight in Chatham, buddy. Okay, I ain't paying you shit. How's that sound?"
Yeah.
You better get the rants out there.
The reality is they can monetize like any other creator anyway.
Right.
And they already have millions of subscribers. It's not like they weren't monetized. They just wanted more. And the government wanted
greedy.
Yes. And they wanted the government to prop up their channels in the search algorithm. And then push the independents to the side with C11, and C18 is to make them pay. And the government wants that too because they're bought and paid for because they already get government funding. So they get government funding. They want the social media companies to pay them what they're already getting plus more and put them front at the top of the search engine rankings and take guys like us and crush us. That's what they wanted them to do.
Put a muzzle on you.
Yeah.
And it just backfired in his face.
Yes.
Okay. And he's going to learn. He's going to learn the hard way, right? Come election time, because as you see, I'm seeing the polls shifting really fast towards conservatives. Anything but Liberal or NDP.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, it's going to be an interesting. If I hear rumors of a snap election, I highly doubt that's going to happen because the only thing getting snapped would be his neck if he did that. He's as good as toast, right?
I think he probably wanted to go to the polls, but he's slipping now. So it wouldn't be wise, I don't think, to call an election now.
No. So we're going to be stuck till 2025 with this dumb twit folks out there watching. Okay. We're going to be stuck. But you know, it's only, we're 2023. We're less than, 24 months away from getting rid of them.
Yeah.
Once and for all.
Yeah.
Right. But there can be a lot of damage still in the process in 24 months. You look at Joe Biden, what he did in 24 months to the United States. Right. So, you know, these creeps, they got the power, and it's sad the way that they're using it. Right. You were voted in by people that wanted you to work for the people, and they're all self-serving at the end of the day.
Yes.
So I will laugh. I will laugh if it is a multiple. Like I'm talking 90% majority for the Conservatives, and there is no party status for either one of those twits. Then you send all these politicians packing. Guess what? They don't have a job anymore. They're not getting paid. And you could say whatever you want about the opposition. We don't need an opposition. Really, we don't. What's the opposition doing? Holding people accountable? Really? So if Pierre don't say what he's going to say, well, then guess what? Then it's on Pierre's head. Then I don't feel sorry for the Conservatives if he don't do what he says he's going to do, right?
Yeah. Well, listen, sir, we're going to move on because we've got calls stacking up here. Thank you, Leo. Really appreciate
Stack
you
them up.
calling in. Okay.
Bye, guys.
All right. See ya. And here's Sue. Hello. How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm just fine. Glad to have you back.
Sorry I haven't been watching your show the last little while.
Well,
I've been canning.
You've been canning?
I'm sorry. I'll have to watch the back shows. I've canned 350 jars of food.
Really? Good for you. Well, you're prepped.
Yeah.
For anything that might be
Oh,
coming
yeah.
then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about
Well,
that. How many,
I have a
like,
question.
what are you canning just before we get into that? What kind
Spaghetti
of stuff?
sauce,
Yeah.
potatoes,
Yeah.
mock apple pie filling, which is zucchini,
Okay.
apple pie filling, and pickles.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you're all set, man. I'm coming for dinner.
Okay, come on over. Well, the neighbor come over to help me move the jars because I've got carpal tunnel.
Oh, yeah.
And he
yeah.
said to me, I'll move the jars if I get a jar.
Sure.
So I sent him home a jar
Good for you. Good for him.
because they're pretty heavy. I have a question. I live up near Petawawa. We got an air quality alert. Is there fires still in Quebec? I can't get any information on it.
Well, before I say anything, yes. Yeah. So you've got,
frick.
here we are. So I'll go straight to the government website here. Air quality alerts in some areas.
Yeah.
Forest fire alerts in Matagami Airfield, Fontanges, La Grande Riviere Airport.
Oh,
so
That's
there's
like
still a
across
number
the
of
Ottawa River.
locations. Yeah.
Oh my God. I hate not being able to find out any information. That just drives me insane.
Yeah.
But no, we got a weather alert. And I'm like, what's the weather alert for? And then they said smog. And I'm like, the hell kind of smog are you talking about? Sky's blue as ever. But I don't know. I just pray for the people in Maui and the ones out BC. That Michael, holy cow.
Yeah.
Somebody was watching over him.
Yes. Absolutely. So I'm glad that he
Yeah.
got out safe. And
Me too.
yeah, still a bad
See,
situation.
my
out
family's
there.
all out there.
Yeah.
And it's scary. I keep getting messages. We're okay. We're okay. But
Yeah. So
no, I was going to head out to BC
yeah,
till the fire started.
yeah, I know that. So here's what I know from what I just pulled up. So the Cree Nation of Wemindji in northwestern Quebec has lifted an evacuation order for medically vulnerable people. So this happened after nearby forest fires led the community to declare a state of emergency earlier this week. And the nation said, a notice is put out, posted Facebook, and they're saying that the first flight to bring evacuees home was expected to depart at 10 a.m. this morning. And the community further north on James Bay, where more than 200 residents fled during the evacuation. Quebec's Forest Fire Prevention Agency says blazes near there are no longer out of control, thanks in part to rainfall. But obviously they're still burning. It just looks like they finally, in that area, they got them under control. So some good news there.
Yeah.
Making progress. Yeah.
See, I tend to agree with Leo. It's a little bit too funny how many fires are going on around the world.
Well,
too weird.
Yeah, a lot. I would not be surprised, and I don't like to speculate. I want to deal with facts, but given what's going on, we do know that just statistically, almost 60% of wildfires in any given wildfire season are the result of they're man-made, either arson or careless smoking or firefighters or forest campfires not put out properly, all those kinds of things. So 60% in any given year. But with all of the, you look at, like, and I said this before too, you have climate activists, eco activists out there, and he's right. Like they don't want to be wrong. They want to push their agenda. The government.
Well, look at that idiot in the government that did the CN Tower.
Yeah, Stephen Guilbeault, the climate change and environment minister. Yeah.
And didn't he drive spikes in trees and was charged?
Yep. I mean, he was one of those kinds of climate activists. Now he's the environment minister and minister of climate change. He doesn't want to be wrong. Now, am I saying that Stephen Guilbeault started these fires? I'm not saying that. But
no,
there are, as an extension of these neoliberals who are running things, you have these activist groups, and they're, tied back to the people in power. But on the other hand, if you're the government, I don't think it looks good on the government to have these fires raging out of control. They're suffering in the court of public opinion because of them. So they don't themselves have a lot of incentive, if they want to remain in power, to intentionally be setting these things. So I'm having some difficulty with people who are saying that it's the government doing it, but it may be arm's length people of the government who are trying to push a political agenda. There are people who will set these fires for a variety of reasons, and we've said this before, and it's happened in the past many times, where people will set a fire just because they want to get a job going out to fight the fires. So that happens. There's a lot of different things that could be going on. Now, all of that being said, I'm not saying any of that is the case. I like to wait and get facts as much as we possibly can, and to sit here on social media.
This seems kind of funny in Maui. They didn't shut the power grid down. They didn't turn the water on. They didn't sound the sirens. Okay, and then you hear that Bill Gates is going to put up a $2.2 million resort down there. Like, what?
And there's all kinds of wacky stuff, like the police chief is the same guy who was actually used to be I think the police chief in Las Vegas when they had that shooting with all the crazy stuff. I think it was the shooting with the concert, and then they had all, like, who was the shooter, and you had all this crazy stuff going on around that. I can't make it up, right? It's the same guy, and there he is in Hawaii. But does that prove anything? It raises questions. Questions are okay, but I'm not sitting here going to draw any conclusions. But it's a little bit weird, maybe a lot weird.
Makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it
Pretty
does.
weird. And that one down there in Vegas, that was very strange. The way the shooter was going after the concert goers. And
Yeah.
it was a country concert, conservatives pretty much in the crowd. And then a lot of weird stuff surrounding the investigation and the way they took the shooter down too. So you can look that
Yeah,
stuff
that
up.
was,
But
wasn't that the Jason Aldean concert?
it might have been. I don't remember who the artist was. I just because it was a few years ago now, right?
Yeah, and now he's big with his song.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe I can find the details here.
Yeah, it was weird. That was bad. That wasn't that long ago though. That was like 2017, 18, that happened.
Yeah, so this was Maui Police Chief John Peltier. He nearly 6 years before this situation in Hawaii, he was on the ground in the aftermath of the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history.
Yeah.
So he was the incident commander covering the Las Vegas Strip when that gunman unleashed on that country music festival. They killed 58 people there. They injured hundreds more. That was October 1st, 2017. And he actually made reference to his experience in Las Vegas while I think in a news conference talking about what happened in Hawaii as well. So I mean, isn't that bizarre?
Yeah.
Tragedy just seems to follow that guy around. He was a
Connect the
22-year
dots.
veteran of the Las Vegas police force.
Yeah.
He became a captain, rising through the ranks. He was a third-generation police officer, was also the commander of the Major Violator Narcotics Bureau since 2020. Bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Earned a certificate from the FBI Academy.
Oh, good Lord.
Born in Buffalo. Yeah, moved to Las Vegas at the age of 17. And Peltier says the experience during the massacre prepared him for his post where he was working as the police chief in Maui. Apparently not well enough because a lot of people died.
Yeah, too many.
Said that what happened in Las Vegas would make him, he said that that prepared him for anything, to handle any situation.
And yet look what he did in Maui.
Yeah, well, yeah. Unbelievable. It's just, and it is like truth is stranger than fiction, right? Well, there you go.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like I said to everybody that I talk to, connect the dots. It all falls back to the mighty dollar. Connect them. And it goes back to money.
Pretty bizarre. Bizarre stuff.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm glad you're feeling better. I hope you're feeling better.
Yeah, I am feeling better today. Much better. Thank you.
Yeah. Did you drink your tea with honey and lemon?
I did drink some tea. Yes, I did.
There you go.
I listen to you guys.
It's good for you. It works.
Yeah, well, it's nice to have you guys looking out for me. I appreciate it.
Stay away from the chemical shit you buy in the store. Do the natural stuff. It works every time.
There you go. And I do take vitamin
I
D.
found out the weeds in my backyard are actually medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true.
I couldn't believe it.
Dandelions, man.
All these people. Yeah. Well, there's another one. It's got like a yellow flower, and they put it in salads.
Yeah.
The wealthy eat it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, I'll let you go so other people
All right.
can chat. But
Thank
it's
you,
nice
Sue.
seeing that you're back and healthy.
Thank you. You have a great night.
All right.
See ya.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.
And here's John.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, I'm phoning to talk more about Trudeau and Facebook social media. That's an interesting concept. And I agree what's going on is really bad. I mean, we need the access to the information. I'm not a particular fan of social media. I think those companies interject their own viewpoints into world politics, and that's scary. They're largely not Canadian companies, and they don't pay taxes here. I think they're largely parasites in Canada, if you want to know the truth. But we need access to information. And what Trudeau's done has led to what is happening. People are being starved of information. That's bad. But I don't know if I believe it's actually incompetence on the Liberal government. They've been studying the phenomenon of our media going broke and viewership going to social media for years and years now. You know, they made their government bailout package based on these studies. I think they understand full well the economic model, excuse me, of these companies. And I think they knew when they were going to try and force them to pay for links used from Canadian sources that there is no way a social media company could ever go for a deal like that. Because if they give in to Canada, they give in to the UK, they give in to Australia, they give in to everywhere, and they're done. I think Trudeau is trying to force us to go back to government-controlled media, CTV, CBC. He doesn't want Canadians to have access to news on the internet. He wants controlled media, and I think this is on purpose. I think it's kind of genius, actually, what they're doing, because they're getting social media to censor us, so he doesn't have to do it directly, but he's created the conditions that force social media to do it. They have no choice. Their business model, they could never do. They can never pay fees like Trudeau wants them to. They'd be gone. They'd be done. And he's done it on purpose.
Yeah, well, may well be the case. And regardless, I think Trudeau kind of gets what he wants, because by stripping away all news content, it forces people to, like, it eliminated us, so it eliminated the dissenting voices, and it still gives the advantage to the mainstream legacy media because they have the government funding.
And that's the other part of the equation. Right, that's the other part of the equation too. I mean, they're completely party to this, right? They're losing money to the internet. They're losing money to social media. So any reporting you see by social media on YouTube or any of the other social media companies, any of the personalities, when they're talking about people that have been banned and they demonize them and make them look scary, they're so biased. They shouldn't even report on that stuff because it's just enriching them to silence voices on social media. It's bringing people back to them. I think if we truly... This government is not a Liberal government. This is not the Chrétien government. This isn't Paul Martin. This isn't even his dad. This is full-blown socialism, like real social, not democratic socialism, socialism that we're going through here, and he's taking over our media. That's what I think is happening in our country right now.
Yeah, I mean, whatever label you want to put on it, I think that we're getting something pretty extreme from this government. And I know exactly what you're saying. And I agree.
I mean, if you really think about how much time they've spent analyzing this problem to come up with the bailouts and all this stuff for media, they understand full well the business model of these companies. And they know there is no way they could conform to what the government wants. It would put them out of business. They would be paying every country in the world for use of their media, and that would be it. So it's not incompetence. I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it. I think he's designed what he wants. And I think Canadians need to really realize that we need to get this government out, because very quickly, we're not going to be able to talk to each other about Canada. We're not going to be able to create a real, true Canadian political culture by discussing what we want in this country. That is real culture, not government-created culture. Canadians with Canadians talking and deciding what they want, that's political culture. This show creates political culture, and you could find yourself silenced easy with this government.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. That's why we're, building a new website. We're, networking with others, live streamers to try to combat this. We're taking a lot of different steps behind the scenes too, to position ourselves in the wake of all of this, because you're right. They want us gone. They do, in the worst way.
you know, I just about every sort of either news or social media influencer Canadian based since about 2015 that I've been interested in, just about every single one has been banned off of YouTube by now, right? And I'm not listening to crazy dangerous stuff. I'm talking just conservative kind of politics people, Canadian nationalist politics, all gone. There's no one left on YouTube. Even Americans, even with their First Amendment, there are only a couple of channels that really function compared to what were on YouTube, say when Trump was running. And I don't really want to get into Trump or anything, but just the amount of people that have been banned off social media for talking about largely mainstream politics is incredible.
It's very, very true.
Right? So, you know, we got to be really careful here because this is scary stuff. I know they always say every election is the most important election. This is really scary stuff. There's been a lot of things put in place now. There's still a bit of stuff getting out on YouTube. I don't really use Facebook, but I mean, I understand what's going on with, you know, what's happening with the liberals and Facebook right now. But, you know, YouTube used to be awesome before it was controlled. When the algorithm just operated freely, it was a great source to see information and then find other people that were talking about similar things. I liked it the way it was. And then YouTube itself started to control it. But then the liberals have done their way to get people off of YouTube that are Canadian, you know, and it's happened to Americans too. So they've managed to get around the First Amendment. You got to put a different government, a government that actually believes that we should be able to talk, and a government that's willing to be brave enough to let people talk and have to actually perform and do governing for our country and not rely on repression and censorship to exist and propaganda, right? It's just, that's the only thing that keeps the liberals alive. They wouldn't exist without the CBC and this controlled media and all the censorship. They wouldn't even exist today. So anyways, I really like your show. I'm new to this show. I haven't, for all the time I spent on YouTube, your show hasn't come up in my suggested playlist, and it did today because of Wildfires. And so I tuned in, and I'm glad I did. So yeah, I really like the fact that Canadians can talk to Canadians, not just someone monologuing for 15 minutes and putting up a video, but actually a phone-in thing. That's very important.
Thank you. I really appreciate it very much. And I hope you call back.
Okay. I will call back, and I'll keep watching, and best of luck. I hope that you guys can stay ahead of whatever nastiness the liberals try and do to repress things before the upcoming election.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, take care.
Thank
Bye.
you, Tom. Take care. Bye for now. Okay, and we're going to drop out of that. And drop out of that. It is now 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this 19th day of August, 2023. I'm going to wrap up a little bit earlier tonight. It's 8:30. Normally we go, you know, sometimes till 9 o'clock. Tonight we'll wrap up because I have to go pick up my wife from the train station because she was in Toronto visiting with my daughter who is going to get married soon. So that's exciting stuff. You can donate at freedomreporters.com to support the channel or at maverickdonations.com. Or if you're over on Rumble, you can also donate through the Rumble Rants, just like the Super Chats on YouTube, except that we're demonetized on YouTube, so you can't do that on our Maverick News channel on YouTube. So that's the way it is. So be it. We're still here. We're still alive. We're still kicking. We're still surviving. And that is what it is all about. Survival. To live, to fight another day for freedom. And specifically here on the Maverick News channel, freedom of speech, freedom of media. I will be back tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on the program tonight. An absolute privilege. On the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.